Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Molero.
And we are the FAIRtax guys. And you hear somebody will say, what's that sound you all make at the beginning of your program? For those listening on the audio podcast, that's one of the scrolling banners that you can get from the FAIRtax logo store.
Yeah.
That you just pull it apart and it says FAIRtax, and it works pretty cool. So that's the sound that the podcast folks are hearing at the beginning of the show.
Yep.
Just figured we had to throw that in there.
That's a popular item at the FAIRtax logo store. We'll talk about that later.
It is. And as a matter of fact, if you're listening to this episode on an audio-only podcast, we would suggest that you go to FAIRtaxGuys.com and look up the video version of this one, because this is going to be a lot of video presentation in this one. You've seen, if you're on Facebook or on any social media site any length of time at all, you've seen what are called memes.
Yep.
It's kind of like an editorial cartoon. It's a picture with some text associated with it. And we want to give some credit to some of the folks out there working in the FAIRtax movement that have created some really good memes. And we'll be showing these. And of course, if you're listening on the audio only, you can't see them. We'll try to describe it to you. But check out the video of this one if you're listening on an audio only podcast on this one, because we got some really good stuff here.
And we did talk about some of these memes in a recent grassroots report.
Yes, we did.
Because Jim Bennett had talked to Dave Armstrong, one of the FAIRtax graphic artist of the century.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And oh yes, ding, 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 ding. We have a huge announcement. FAIRtax Power Radio is going on the road again.
Yep.
Next week's episode, we're going on the road. We're not quite going out to Oklahoma this time.
No, we're a little closer this time.
We are going to a political event. We're in Central Florida here. We're going to a political event down near Orlando called Trumpapalooza.
Yeah, and so you can imagine what it's about.
But again, the FAIRtax, we want to continue to emphasize, is a nonpartisan issue. There's stuff about it that everybody should like, but going to a political event, regardless of who's putting it on and who they're favoring and who they're not favoring, it's a good idea if you're a FAIRtax grassroots activists to get to these political events, regardless of which party's putting them on, and just put the FAIRtax in front of these people.
Yeah, because whether they're Republicans or Democrats, they need to learn about the FAIRtax, because unfortunately, not enough politicians know about it, and it's our job to teach them.
Yeah, so there are not going to be a lot of nationally known folks here. So those of you that are outside of Central Florida, you don't expect to see people that you see on the news regularly. But we're going to take the FAIRtax message down to this local event in Orlando.
That's right. We're bringing the camera.
We will have video of it tomorrow, and I think we may have a couple of presidents to talk to. Maybe we'll see.
At least one.
That's a maybe. So hang on to FAIRtax Power Radio for next week, and that's going to be a good idea.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. That's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of people are involved in that on our part.
Yes, real quickly, we always keep our eye on Congress.gov to see what the Congress critters are doing to the tax code, and hence doing to you. And we got another one here. This is H.R. 4598 that was introduced.
First off, how many are there?
Oh, there are exactly 1,101. 1,101 hits is what you get when you go to the search function on Congress.gov and put in the phrase, enclosed in quotes, Internal Revenue Code. So it brings back all of the bills that are referencing that particular string. And this one says to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to provide an exemption from FAIRPTA, F-I-R-P-T-A. That's some acronym. I have no clue what it means. But apparently it's something you need to get exempted from if you are have interest held by certain foreign insurance companies. That, ladies and gentlemen, is in your tax code. Or not yet. It's been proposed to put into your tax code.
Yeah. So,
of course, it's got a grand total of one co-sponsor, so that's pretty cool.
That one may not go too far.
Yeah,
but just think of it. We've got not even a year of the 116th Congress. They have 1,100 proposals to change the tax code. Fortunately, only a few of those will make it in there. Mm-hmm. But it seems that Congress just never finds the end of looking how to change the tax code. They're always looking for ways to change the tax code, and they use the tax code to try to change our behavior because, they're inside the beltway, they know all, and we're just American patriots, trying to get along. So
one more real quick one. H.R. 4549 to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to restore the deduction for research and experimental expenditures. Now, I've never done an experimental expenditure before. Let's try this dollar bill and see if it works. All right, so that's it. That reminds me of what Steve Hayes' chairman's report was. It's about how that the Congress is always trying to control the masses by giving deductions and then threatening to take away deductions and stuff like that. So if you're not reading the chairman's report, if you're not getting it in your inbox, or if you're not watching the video version on YouTube, you need to do that. But the Congress is always messing with what deductions we can have and what deductions we can't have.
And by the way, you can get the chairman's report. If you're not getting it, go to FAIRtax.org and sign up there. I can't remember exactly what the link is, but go to FAIRtax.org. That's the website of the national group, and sign up to receive. You will not get spam because you give the Americans for Fair Taxation your information. You will not get spam. They never do that.
You need to watch the audio-video version on YouTube. They've got a wonderful announcer that voices that.
Yes. Very professional sounding. Yep.
Oh, well, I'm not sure I should have gone there. Okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes of what this episode is going to be about. All of the various different memes that folks have created. And we picked out, there are 3 contributors that have created some of these memes that we're going to talk about today. And you mentioned one, Dave Armstrong.
Yep, he's the first one. And Dave has created, well over 1,000 memes. I think it's up around 1,400 memes over the years.
Obviously, we don't have time to look at them all.
No. Look at so Bob and I have picked out our favorite ones. I got onto his Facebook page. There's a lot of his memes there in his picture section, and I pulled out, downloaded some of my favorite ones and ran it by Bob, and so we've decided on. So I think we got a total of 15 memes here. Okay. But the first one...
this actually is an editorial cartoon. It's a drawing rather than a photograph.
Yep.
And it shows an arm with grabbing somebody by the legs and just shaking all the money out of them.
And, and the sleeve on the shirt says IRS.
Yes. So that's the IRS that has this guy by the ankles and is holding him upside down, shaking all of the money out of him. His eyeballs are bulging out. You really need to go to the video version and see this. And the money's falling out of his pocket, and the message there, of course, is the fair tax stops this.
That's right.
The fair tax puts an end to the IRS abuses against taxpayers because it puts an end to the IRS.
Yeah.
It's gone. Under the fair tax, there is no IRS, and people now just can't imagine life without the Internal Revenue Service. It's been part of their lives, for as long as they've been breathing.
But when we've gone to various events, very often outdoor events, when you mention that the IRS that the fair tax gets rid of the IRS, that gets people's attention. I tell you, the IRS is universally despised. And
with good reason.
Yeah. And people would really like to see a tax code that doesn't need the IRS. And, of course, the fair tax does that.
And you will hear people say, let's just go to a simple flat tax. That'll get rid of the IRS. You can do your return on a postcard. Well, who do you send the postcard to?
And as my wife always, whenever anybody makes that comment to her, she says, okay, I have one question. What's that? How long do you think it'll stay flat? And they take a few seconds to think about it, and then they get this kind of...
Because that's what they did in 1986. They say they totally rewrote the tax code. They flattened it out, and what we've got now, over 70,000 pages of stuff. So the fair tax, getting rid of the income tax that the IRS is charged with administering, enforcing, is the only way to get rid of the agency that enforces it.
Yeah.
Because if the federal government continues to tax income, doesn't matter how many tax brackets they've got or how many exemptions they take away and how flat they make it, You are still having to file a tax return. You are still sending it into the IRS. Getting rid of the income tax, as the FAIRtax does, is the only way to get rid of the Internal Revenue Service. And, they've got that pretty good. The FAIRtax stops this because it gets rid of the IRS.
Yeah, very simple meme, but very effective.
Now, I like this one as well, too. The Congress has been had the FAIRtax in front of it for over 20 years. It was first introduced in 1999.
Yeah.
It was developed in the mid-90s by a team of economists hired by Leo Lindbeck and Bob McNair and some other folks that said, come up with the best tax system you possibly can, starting with a clean sheet of paper. That was in the mid-90s. What they came up with came to be known as the FAIRtax. It was first introduced in Congress in 1999, 20 years ago. And Congress is just like the ostrich in this picture, has its head stuck in the sand. Did somebody say FAIRtax? 20 years and counting that Congress has had their head buried in the sand, totally oblivious to the kind of tax reform that we really need in this country. And so there you go. Congress
and the way we overcome that is by volunteers and supporters contacting their Congress critters, which is very simple to do. You can go on their website, whoever your congressman is or your senators and so forth, and call up their office, send them an email, and just do that today, and then tomorrow repeat.
Okay, well, get Congress to pull its head out of the sand there, because Dave has really captured what Congress has been doing with the FAIRtax for the past 20 years.
Yeah.
It's died in committee every single year, and we're just going to have to make sure that doesn't happen eventually, because if they ever bring it up for a vote and debate, and the national media is forced to pay attention to it, it's as if the national media has got an embargo against even mentioning the word FAIRtax now.
Well, and there's another aspect too, is that the evasion problem is so huge. Over 20%, there's over 20% evasion of the income tax. People not paying their legal amount, but they're avoiding it. Not avoiding it, they're evading it by one, and that figure is going to get worse every year. It's almost $800 billion this year. It's going to be worse next year, and at some point, Congress is going to have to face the issue. The income tax is a failure.
Absolutely.
It's a failure, and they're going to have to address it. We need to turn their attention to it before it becomes a crisis.
And we quickly need to differentiate between tax avoidance and tax evasion. Tax avoidance is using the legal stuff within the tax code to pay as little as you can. That's legal, no problem with that.
Like taking the standard deduction. Nothing wrong with that.
But tax evasion means that you owe the money and you figure out a way not to pay it. Now, that's illegal, and that's what they'll get you for. But we need to move on a little bit. I love this one as well. This is your paycheck before taxes and your paycheck after taxes. Of course, your paycheck before taxes is this great white shark. I mean, what,
with its mouth wide open and the teeth bearing.
What a massive animal the great white shark is. And then your paycheck after taxes is the dead skeleton of a fish there on the beach
sand
someplace that has been stripped bare. It's not quite that extreme. The government doesn't take everything, but just think it, the government taking a big chunk out of your paycheck before you even get it. That is just morally obscene.
And
your paycheck is yours. It does not belong to the government.
And if you extrapolate this to small businesses, I've heard people at outdoor events in which this couple was running a restaurant, and they figured up, with all the taxes they pay, state, local, federal taxes, about 60% of their income in that restaurant went to one form of tax or another. That's crazy.
That's true. But your paycheck before taxes is full and robust. Every dime you earn, you get under the FAIRtax. But with the IRS and the income tax, you get the bottom picture there. You get what the government decides you're allowed to have after they take whatever they want out of your paycheck.
You get the bones.
Dave has captured, you get the bones and the head left. And the government takes the good stuff. So
I forgot to start my timer. So
I've got the time in my head here.
Okay, good.
I think we're close.
Because I totally forgot that little detail. Okay, the next one. This was one of my favorites because he's using a cartoon out of a newspaper from 1933. 1933. The income tax was only 20 years old.
Yeah,
right?
The income tax came out, actually it came out on this date. The date that we're recording this is the anniversary of the date that President Wilson signed the income tax. I saw that this morning on Facebook. So a friend of mine posts a lot of little historical tidbits. Today, we're recording this on October 4th, and that is, if my friend is correct, I assume he is, so this is the date on which President Wilson signed the income tax into law in 1913.
Anyways, in this cartoon, for those of you listening to the podcast, okay, you've got a person, you got a congressman, you know, his hat says congressman. He's trying to hold Uncle Sam back. Uncle Sam is trying to head towards a sales tax, and Congress is holding him back, saying, no, not that way. You know, and the comments here are the FAIRtax. A national sales tax is not a new idea. Neither are the selfish objections argued by Congress. And that cartoon was from 1933.
Yeah,
we've been fighting this battle a long time.
When the income tax was only 20 years old. So Uncle Sam wants to go down the path towards a general sales tax, and Congress says, no, you need to go the other way, which is
it makes a strong statement. And,
so those are our Dave Armstrong memes, and of course, I say he has done many, many more than this.
All right,
but
now
let's move on to David Boone.
Yep. David Boone, okay, he's another one that churns out a whole bunch of memes, and this first one is amazingly simple and amazingly powerful. Okay, It is a picture of a footprint in the lunar dust. Okay, for one of the Apollo missions. I'm not sure which one, but it's simply a picture of a footprint in the lunar dust, and it says, "I'm an American. Don't tell me it can't be done."
Ooh. How many times have we heard, the fair tax is a great idea, but it'll never pass?
It will when enough of us get behind it. All right, and that's why Bob and I are doing this every single week.
That's what
we need you to
about.
help us.
Don't tell me the fair tax will never pass. We are Americans. We can get things done.
That's right. And this one, this is a no-brainer. I mean, the fair tax, when average citizens learn about it, their comment is, this makes so much sense. Why aren't we doing this already?
Yeah.
Welcome to Congress.
That was my mother's reaction after I gave her the book and explained it to her, and she read it. She said, "Why aren't we doing this already?"
Yep.
Well, it makes too much sense.
Yeah. It does.
Moving right along, David Boone now has captured. How many of you remember the old comic strip Pogo?
Yeah, this goes back a ways.
So he's kind of borrowed a character out of Pogo and something that they did, and he's modified their little phrase here. It says, "We have met the enemy, and he is Congress." So there's the cartoon character sitting forlornly with his chin in his hand like that, and saying, "We know who the enemy is. The enemy is the people that we elect and keep re-electing."
Yeah.
And I'll never understand how the approval rating for Congress as a whole is generally in the single digits.
Yep.
But the re-election rate for Congress people is over 90%.
Yeah.
Why do we keep sending the same people back to Congress if we hate the institution? Of course, we hear it all this time. The institution stinks, but my congressman is good.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
And we can kind of say that. I like Ted Yoho, who's our congressman.
Yeah, I
good
do.
fair tax supporter.
Yeah. So.
But there it is. We've met the enemy, and he is Congress. Congress has the power to make the tax code say anything that they want it to say. Yeah. And they have made it into this horrible monstrosity that we have to deal with. And they can, if they want to, if it becomes a winning issue at the ballot box to do this, they can wipe the whole thing out, repeal the 16th Amendment, make an income tax unconstitutional again, and replace all of this with the fair tax. A simple sales tax, consumption tax, whatever you want to call it, that you pay at the cash register when you buy things. You get refunded 100% of the tax that's collected from you on your spending up to the poverty level. You don't take a dime out of your own pocket until you take care of your family.
And most of us are familiar with a sales tax idea because 45 of the 50 states have a state sales tax. Yep. And we're familiar with that. You go buy something, the sales tax is there on the price. Now, with the fair tax, it's a little different. It's included in the price, but still, the concept is the same. The
fair tax works like the tax on fuel.
Yeah.
There's lots of tax when you buy gasoline or diesel fuel to run your vehicle with. All the state, local, and federal taxmen, all of them are standing there by the pump with their hand out when you fill up your car or your truck. But the sales tax on fuel, or taxes on fuel, are not added on after the fact like most sales taxes are. So that's when somebody say, well, what's the fair tax rate? And tell them it's 23% inclusive. Oh, and they recoil in horror at the thought of a 23% sales tax, turning a $100 item on the shelf into a $123 item at the cash register, and that's not how it works. It's included in the price, just like the taxes on fuel. But,
and just like the income tax is included, if you are making a salary of $50,000 a year, you know that's not your take home. That includes the income tax that you're going to be paying to Uncle Sam. So it's the same concept.
Yep.
It's inclusive.
Moving along here, the income tax, the fine you pay for the crime of being productive and useful.
Yeah, and it shows a guy with a hard hat on, and
it's a picture
work clothes, and he's got dirt all over him, because he's been working hard and so forth. And the fine you pay for the crime of being productive and useful. And that's about what it is, because if you're working a second job, like on weekends or evenings or something, and you're making more money to support your family, well, you go over a certain level and you get penalized. You get thrown into a higher tax code. What's fair about that?
Higher tax bracket, you get a raise and you bring home less money.
Yeah, so...
I really like this next one, because I have been kind of I'm not necessarily a history buff, but I am fascinated by the story of the Titanic. And this is a cartoon. It shows the people in the water, the ship with a nose down sinking. Now they've taken a little poetic license here and showed everybody in the water with their cell phones out, taking pictures of the ship going down. And the text here says, the flat tax is like rearranging the deck chairs. Yeah. Don't be fooled. The flat tax and the fair tax are entirely different animals. The flat tax is indeed rearranging the deck chairs on the ship that's going down by the head.
That's right. That's right. Remember, Bob already mentioned 1986, they reworked the tax code. They had, I'm not sure how many tax brackets they have, but the tax code was reduced to nothing. It was still like 26,000 pages. And now it's over 76,000 pages. But so simplifying the income tax will not help.
This turned into this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what
and
we're
it didn't take
with.
very long. And the lobbyists love the idea of a flat tax because they get to start all over again.
Yeah, and this turned into this. I'm looking at the two Rubik's Cubes, my little 2x2 and the big 11x11 that's all scrambled up. We got about 10 minutes left. We need to move on a little bit.
Okay.
Now, you have actually come up with some pretty good ones.
Yeah, I have created a few. I took, I took kind of the cue from Dave Armstrong and David Boone and so forth. And every once in a while I see a picture and it kind of strikes me. So this one is a picture of the tax code. One of the congressmen brought these reams of paper that stood up about 10 or 11 feet and lined them up and took a picture.
Stack of paper on a hand truck that they're having to carry it in
and
here.
said, this is the tax code. So I got that picture, and I got this picture of this guy who's in his chair, working in his chair with, I'll do a cutaway so you can see it. All right, this is the tax code, and this is your brain on the tax code. Any questions?
Just totally bumfuzzled here, has no clue what's going on. He's staring up at the ceiling in total despair.
It begs the question, is there anybody that attempts to do their income taxes by hand without using software?
I don't know.
Because this would be the exasperation they would experience, Oh my God.
This is the tax code.
Make it in.
This is your brain on the tax code.
Yep.
Any questions? That's like the old anti-drug campaign.
And then the other comment, the FAIRtax guys will talk you through it.
Yes, that's what we will do every week if you will watch us and listen to us.
So,
okay, this next one, you have got a little small business person who is just overwhelmed with all kinds of stuff.
It's a little girl with these big glasses on. She's about maybe 5 years old.
She looks like about 5, Has the
and she's got a tie, and she's sitting in front of a calculator, and she's got a pen in her hand and so forth. And what I did was I listed as many as I could fit tax forms from the IRS, from figuring out your business taxes, all right? Form 1040C, 1040F, depreciation, Forms 1045, 2530, and it goes on and on. I probably got 15 or 20.
Business use of home, shareholder, employment taxes, farm employment taxes, all of these have a different form.
Yep.
We touched on this the other day. There are over 1,000 of them now.
And the little girl has got her, she's looking Oh my gosh. And yeah, that's the way it is with business people. They've got all this stuff to deal with. And usually they can't do it by themselves. They have to hire somebody, which is another business expense, which gets rolled into the price of their product or service.
Yes. Okay. Moving along here, you can't go wrong with kids.
Yep.
There's the kid that's the business person, and then you shrink it down to an infant sitting at the keyboard of a computer.
This is one of my favorites. I saw this picture of this kid, this chubby little baby.
He's composing a letter to the editor on his computer.
Yeah, and he's sitting in front of a laptop, and he's got his hand on the keyboard because he's seen what mommy and daddy do, so he's going to mimic them. Yep. Dear editor, please tell the grown-ups to pass the FAIRtax now.
There you go.
And again, I'll do these cutaways so that you, those of you watching the video version of this, you'll be able to see it. And we encourage our podcast listeners
to check
just this
out.
time, go to FAIRtaxGuys.com and take a look, because this is worth it.
And I love this one too. This is a good visual representation of the difference between the income tax and the FAIRtax. The income tax is an old-fashioned steamroller, and the FAIRtax is a modern, sleek sports car. The income tax versus the FAIRtax. Again, any questions? Which one would you rather drive? I think I'd rather drive the sports car.
Oh yeah. And they got a picture of jumper cables there, and it says "Jumpstart the economy with the FAIRtax." Okay. All right.
Now you can't go wrong with dogs either.
Well, this one, I'm not sure where I ran into this, but somebody took a picture of these 3 dogs, and they enhanced the picture so that their eyes are wide open, and the 3 dogs are also have their mouths. So they're looking like this big, huge, surprised look, and it says, "We can't believe our eyes. We can fund the entire government with just 133 pages?" That's the FAIRtax. Very simple, very short, because it's a sales tax. It's so simple that even a congressman can figure it out.
Didn't Randy say they changed the font? It's down to 131 pages. I think so.
They changed the font.
Yeah, the surprise dogs. And this next one, it looks like just a pile of junk. If Congress built houses like they built the tax code, this would be your home sweet home.
Yeah.
You've got to see the video on this one. There's really no way to describe that. It just looks like a mound of junk.
It looks like an igloo, but instead of ice cubes, it's got junk. Like Bob said, it's got all these old desks and chairs and whatever, and they're just piled up in a mound. And I think it was I got it from a website in which said somebody built a house out of this thing.
Oh, mercy!
Out of junk.
And we're running really quick on time here, but we've got to get to this last one. If I had to pick one of my favorites out of the entire lot that we've looked at today, this would be it. Another dog one. He's hanging onto a dock by his front face. He's soaking wet, and it says the income tax gets loopholes. The rest of us get hosed. That is your best work. I have to give you credit for that.
And I have to give my wife credit, because at one point she did a search on internet images for kids and dogs. You can't go wrong with kids and dogs. And a lot of my memes have kids or dogs, and every once in a while we'll put the 2 of them together. Yeah, but this poor dog, it looks like he just came up off of the river. He's hanging onto the dock.
Thrown in the river. He's soaked from head to toe, hanging onto the dock with his front paws, and just the most forlorn look on his face. So the rest of us get hosed by the income tax.
All right, we only got a few minutes left.
You got a couple minutes left. Hit your grassroots corner.
Yep, this is Jim Bennett is on the board of directors for the Americans for Fair Taxation, the national group, and local content wanted. This is from September 20th. I somehow missed it the last time we had a grassroots update. But do your peers, kids, or even grandkids remark, "Oh, email is so yesterday"? For sure, email no longer elicits the response it used to, but there may be something you can do about it. Through the efforts of Adam Yumtoff. Gee, it seems to me we've mentioned his name before.
He's a workhorse here.
The Energizer Bunny of New York State. All right, we have an up-to-date index of state FAIRtax websites and social media pages. Yep, and you can find it by going to fairtax.org and clicking on the Get Involved tab and dragging down to and clicking on state websites and online social media. All right. Okay. At my count, there's 38 websites and Facebook pages for 26 states. 26 states. Okay. I can't read all of this because we don't have time, but
you got about 30 seconds to do your logo store now.
Yeah. Well. Okay.
You're going to take a little extra.
We're gonna get through this one. There are a set of 10 websites and so forth. Randy Fisher has a hand in it. Many of the state Facebook pages are fed by Randy Fisher and so forth. We are actively seeking volunteers to take over these pages. Randy, I can tell you, works 50 to 60 hours a week on the FAIRtax as a volunteer. Remember, we are all volunteers. There are no paid positions. So if you would like to help, if you think you can help on a Facebook page or a state website or something like that, contact Randy Fisher at randy.fisher@fairtax.org or Adam Yumtoff at iwanttaxreform@gmail.com. And of course, you'll see both of those down here. But right. And then the FAIRtax logo store. Okay, we'll make it brief. You can buy these at the FAIRtax logo store. FAIRtaxlogostore.org. FAIRtaxlogostore.org. You can buy shirts. You can buy hats. You can buy these. I didn't get my stuff out of here, but you can buy these. Didn't you order some more of these? Yeah, I think my wife ordered some more of those things. Palm cards, yes. All right, these are handy. You can buy a packet of these things and keep them in your purse or keep them in your pocket or whatever. Have them handy. Leave them in like a little envelope in your car, so if you get into a discussion with somebody, you can pull them out, And so anyways, there's a lot of things. There's tumblers, there's earrings, there's a lot of stuff. FAIRtaxlogostore.org, FAIRtaxlogostore.org. Help us out by demonstrating visibly your support for the FAIRtax by buying and wearing and using some of this equipment.
So, again, if you were listening to one of the audio-only podcasts of this episode, you've got to go to our website, FAIRtaxGuys.com. Check out the video so you can see all of the memes we've been talking about. But that's going to wrap up this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
The FAIRtax Guys reminding you once again that the FAIRtax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it. Thank you.
So tell me, how could I pay less taxes?
Less?
Yeah, I'm trying to get ahead, so how can I pay less?
Well, I suppose you could pay less taxes by earning less money, or you could give to charity.
How is that going to help?
Actually, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but if you know the right people, okay, or if you have a really good lawyer, you can usually get around the big ones.
If I may, under the FAIRtax, to pay less taxes, you would simply consume less. You would control how much you pay and when you pay your taxes simply by choosing what you purchase and when you purchase something.
So I could stay focused and get ahead.
Exactly.